The annual summer festival was alive and buzzing in the city's largest park. Colors exploded from every corner, from vibrant red and blue balloons tied to vendor carts to the bright, swirling ribbons on children's hats and clothes. The smell of caramel popcorn, roasting corn, and fresh lemonade mingled in the warm afternoon air. Laughter rippled through the crowd as kids tugged on their parents' sleeves, eager to explore the next game or sample another treat. This park was more than just a festival location, it was a gathering place for the city's diverse community. Families of all backgrounds had gathered to enjoy the sunny afternoon, filling the open spaces with groups picnicking, snapping photos, and chatting in a dozen different languages. Yet beneath the lively scene, there was an unmistakable tension. It was subtle, more a matter of certain glances than spoken words. A few families stayed to themselves, side-eyeing others with quiet wariness or curiosity. Some of the city's older residents, especially those who had been around long enough to remember when neighborhoods were more segregated, kept to their familiar circles. Moments of silence lingered in conversations when certain groups passed by, a reminder of the deep-seated divisions that still lay beneath the surface. Among the crowd was 8-year-old Lily Harper, her bright smile shining as she took in the festival from her wheelchair. She was captivated by the sights and sounds, from the children's carnival music to the shimmering lights above the stage where performers danced and twirled. Her wheelchair, adorned with colorful stickers of her favorite cartoons, mirrored her boundless enthusiasm. She pushed herself forward on the gravel path, her eyes wide with excitement as her father, James Harper, watched her closely from a few steps behind. He knew these moments of joy were precious, especially for Lily, who faced the world's challenges with unmatched resilience. As Lily approached the playground, her eyes locked onto the swings, her favorite part of the park. She was nearly there when a large, imposing figure stepped into her path. Officer Kyle Benson, dressed in his police uniform, was known around town for his intimidating demeanor, especially when interacting with minorities. His stern expression carried a hint of something darker as he noticed Lily. Benson's gaze narrowed, his brows furrowing as if offended by her mere presence. He planted himself firmly before her, crossing his arms as he looked down at her with a piercing stare. Lily's joyful expression faltered, replaced by confusion and a hint of nervousness. She tried to steer around him, but he sidestepped to block her path again, his stance rigid. "Where do you think you're going?" he demanded, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your kind shouldn't be here." Lily blinked, unsure of what to say. She glanced back toward her father, who had noticed the interaction and was starting to make his way over. Trying to muster her courage, she looked back up at Benson and said softly, I just want to play on the swings." Her voice was barely a whisper, but her words held a quiet strength. Benson, however, only seemed further agitated, his mouth twisting into a sneer. "Go somewhere else," he snapped. "This playground isn't for you." Several nearby festival goers had stopped to watch, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. Some began whispering among themselves, but no one dared to intervene. James, witnessing the confrontation, picked up his pace, his protective instincts surging as he closed the distance between himself and Lily. The festive laughter and buzz of the summer park suddenly halt, replaced by a hush that settles over the crowd like an uneasy shadow. Families, friends, and children glance towards the scene, some murmuring, others frozen. A predominantly white crowd fills the area, and their faces show a spectrum of emotions from surprise to confusion to discomfort. A few adults instinctively reach for their children, gently pulling them closer, as though shielding them from an invisible danger. Then, as Officer Benson's voice echoes with a cold authority and disdain directed at young Lily, a quiet realization dawns among the bystanders. Whispers start to ripple. Did he just say that to her? Someone murmurs, voice thick with disbelief. Another person, a mother holding her toddler, watches in a blend of fear and empathy, torn between moving closer and staying out of it. For some, Benson's stance, his towering figure over a young girl in a wheelchair, seemed surreal, a clash of innocence against authority in the most unsettling way. Among the crowd, individuals from minority backgrounds exchange looks of silent understanding. A man with a camera phone steps forward slightly, beginning to record, his hands trembling as he catches each word and action. Others around him follow suit, recognizing the weight of the moment. They know all too well what this is, a raw display of bias and intimidation that no one seems willing to stop. The glint of recording devices reflects a collective decision to bear witness, as if to say, "We see you." Benson, sensing the eyes and cameras on him, briefly glances at the crowd, but holds his ground. To the onlookers, the silence feels loaded, a silence of quiet solidarity, disbelief, and simmering outrage. Across the park, James Harper spots the familiar bright wheelchair and the towering figure above it, and his heart skips a beat. A chill of dread runs through him as he strides forward, his eyes fixed on Officer Benson, who is now fully blocking Liz's path. As he nears, he can hear Benson's voice, a sharp, dismissive tone, dripping with contempt as he orders Lily to stay in her place. "Excuse me," James's voice booms with calm authority as he steps between his daughter and the officer, his presence a shield and a warning. "What's going on here?" he demands, his tone unwavering, his gaze locked onto Benson. The officer's eyes narrow, his jaw clenching as he sizes up James. There's an unmistakable flash of unease, maybe even intimidation, in Benson's eyes, confronting a black man of authority, a father with a fierce protective gaze. He straightens, trying to regain control, but James doesn't waver. His stature, his experience as an FBI agent, and most importantly, his role as a father who would do anything for his daughter, speak louder than any badge. "I suggest you step aside," James states, his voice carrying a barely restrained edge. "This is my daughter, and we have as much right to be here as anyone else's tone is measured, each word underlined with the power of someone who won't let intimidation win." The onlookers sense the tension, drawn closer by the encounter unfolding before them. Benson, visibly uncomfortable, stammers a weak defense. She was in the way. Just ... making sure she's not causing trouble. James steps closer, his voice dropping to a low, fierce tone that only Benson can hear. "She's a child. My child. You think you can treat her like this and walk away?" The intensity in James's eyes sends a silent message that needs no explanation, a father's unwavering promise to protect his daughter at all costs. The silence around them deepens as the crowd watches, the weight of the confrontation hanging heavy in the air. The racial and power dynamics are unspoken but understood, and Benson's discomfort grows as he realizes he's not just facing a father, he's facing a man who won't back down, a man of integrity and authority who demands accountability. The park falls into a tense silence as backup arrives, sirens piercing the air before coming to an abrupt stop. 2 squad cars pull up, and 3 additional officers, all white, step out. Their eyes scan the scene, landing on Kyle Benson, who stands defensively, a flash of guilt and defiance in his eyes as he spots James Harper confronting him. Without hesitation, the officers move to surround Benson, creating a physical barrier between him and James. The crowd, a diverse mix of onlookers, parents, and festival-goers, watches in a mix of disbelief and growing anger. Lily's small, vulnerable form sits in her wheelchair, inches away from the defensive line of officers who have effectively blocked James's view of her. "Step back," so one of the officers warns, his voice tight, as he positions himself protectively in front of Benson. James's jaw clenches. He refuses to back down. "I'm her father," he says, his voice strong but restrained, "and that officer just assaulted my daughter in broad daylight. I want answers, and I demand accountability." "Sir, we're handling the situation," another officer replies, avoiding eye contact with James and disregarding the growing murmurs from the crowd. There's a clear dismissal in his tone, a practiced indifference that implies they've already decided where their loyalties lie. The tension thickens, with Lily's frightened face peeking out from behind the officers. The crowd, sensing the injustice, begins to push forward. A middle-aged woman in a brightly colored dress steps forward, her voice breaking the silence. "We all saw what happened," she calls out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That little girl did nothing wrong, and you're protecting him." Another bystander chimes in, "She's just a kid." "And that man attacked her without reason." Their words start a ripple effect, and soon the crowd's shouts grow louder, accusing the officers of shielding Benson and demanding justice for Lily. One of the officers lifts his hands, trying to quell the crowd, but the anger is palpable. Phones are up, recording every moment, capturing the stark image of a defenseless child and a father who isn't being heard. Within hours, the videos taken in the park are everywhere on social media, news websites, and group chats across the nation. A short clip of Benson's strike, followed by James's desperate attempt to shield his daughter, is replayed again and again. People are shocked, horrified, and outraged. On social media, the hashtag #JusticeAfoley gains traction almost immediately. People post messages of support, share their own experiences, and call for an investigation into the officers' actions. The initial outrage grows into a powerful movement, uniting voices from across the country. News stations pick up the story, broadcasting the footage alongside expert commentary on racial bias and the dangers faced by black children in public spaces. Activists quickly organize rallies, urging communities to come together and demand accountability not only for Officer Benson, but for an entire system that allows such prejudice to persist. Local leaders, church groups, and concerned citizens rally around the Harper family, offering support and resources. Images of Lily's small face, bruised but defiant, become symbols of resilience and the need for change. At one of the first rallies, a speaker addresses a crowd, his words cutting through the simmering anger. "We are here because a child, an innocent black child, was made to feel less than. Because her father, a man who's dedicated his life to justice, was denied his right to protect his own. This is a call for accountability." The crowd's response is powerful, a collective roar of agreement and determination. Posters reading "Justice for Lily" are held high, and the community stands united, knowing that this movement is about more than one incident. It's about changing the way society views and protects all children, regardless of race. The nation watches as the story of Lily Harper becomes a rallying cry for justice, pushing communities to confront and dismantle racial bias. The air in the courtroom was tense, almost suffocating, as Officer Kyle Benson sat at the defendant's table, eyes darting nervously across the crowd. A jury, diverse and thoughtful, filled the jury box, each face reflecting a range of emotions: anger, curiosity, sympathy, and a sense of duty. They had all seen the viral video. Lily Harper, a young black girl in a wheelchair, was struck by a uniformed officer who should have been protecting her. But here they were, each juror fully aware that this trial wasn't just about that single moment in the park, but about something deeper, more uncomfortable: the pervasive presence of racial bias in their community. Prosecutor Olivia Martinez, a seasoned Latina attorney known for her unflinching resolve, stood before them. She began her opening statement with a calm but pointed reminder of their responsibility. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she said, her voice firm and steady, "you're here to decide if justice is still a value we hold in our community. Lily Harper, just 8 years old, sitting in her wheelchair, was not a threat. She was a child, eager to join the playground with other kids. But Officer Benson saw something different. He saw a little girl of color and thought he could act with impunity. That day, in broad daylight, he betrayed the badge meant to protect us all." Benson's defense attorney, John Ferris, took a measured breath before stepping forward. He began with a plea to the jury's sense of fairness. Officer Benson, he explained, was under tremendous stress. His duty was to keep the peace amidst a crowded festival. Sometimes, in high-stress situations, people make mistakes. Ferris's voice grew softer as he tried to elicit sympathy. Are we, as a society, going to destroy a man's career over a single lapse? But Olivia was prepared. Rising to her feet once again, she faced the jury. Are we really going to allow stress to become an excuse for what happened to Lily? She asked, her eyes unwavering. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was the result of a pattern, a culture that fails to see children like Lily for who they are: innocent, vulnerable, and deserving of protection. Her gaze locked onto each juror, her voice rising. If we don't stand up now, then when? A quiet murmur spread through the room as Olivia's words settled over the jurors. The weight of her argument was undeniable. Every eye turned toward Lily's small figure sitting beside her father, James, in the gallery. The courtroom was silent, except for the occasional shuffle as people shifted uncomfortably in their seats, grappling with the raw truth of the moment. The trial sparked something in the city. What started as whispers of outrage grew into a unified call for justice. From neighborhood centers to City Hall, voices rose together, each demanding accountability and change. Members of minority communities, particularly those who had experienced similar treatment, organized peaceful marches throughout the city. Posters with Lily's face and phrases like "Justice for Lily" and "Protect our children" became a common sight. James Harper, now more than just Lily's father, but a symbol of resilience and courage, addressed crowds during one of the largest rallies. Standing on the steps of City Hall, with hundreds looking up at him, he spoke with a voice that carried both the weight of his sorrow and the power of his resolve. This isn't just about my daughter. This is about every child who deserves to be treated with respect and humanity, he declared, eyes scanning the crowd. We're calling for change. We're calling for policies that hold those in power accountable when they cross the line. Beside James, Lily held onto his hand, her small frame dwarfed by the crowd but standing with a quiet, unmistakable strength. The crowd chanted her name, "Justice for Lily." Their voices, loud and filled with hope, sent a ripple through the streets, a sound that could not be ignored. Local leaders took note. The community's outrage translated into action, with petitions, meetings, and calls for reforms within the police department. The message was clear: enough was enough. No more children, no more families should have to endure what Lily and James had faced. Several months after the trial, Lily sat quietly in her father's car as they approached the park, the very place where everything had changed. She hadn't returned since that day, fear and sadness lingering every time she thought of it. But today was different. Her father had promised her that justice would be theirs, and that promise, that hope, gave her courage. As they entered the park, a new addition caught her eye. A small plaque, gleaming in the sunlight, was affixed near the playground. Lily's name was etched there, alongside words honoring her bravery and resilience. It read, "In honor of Lily Harper," a reminder of the courage and resilience of every child. Lily's eyes filled with tears, a mixture of pride, relief, and gratitude. Her father knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You did this, Lily," he whispered. "You helped people see what's right, what's needed." Around them, families played, children laughed, and the park buzzed with life. Lily took a deep breath, letting the sounds and sights wash over her. The fear that once held her back slowly lifted, replaced by a sense of belonging, a feeling of strength. For James and Lily, this day marked the start of a new chapter. The community had stood with them, a movement had taken root, and changes were underway. But more than that, Lily knew she could face anything with her father by her side. The road to justice was long, but they had taken the first steps, together, surrounded by a city that believed in their cause. As they sat near the playground, watching children run and play, Lily Lee leaned against her father, feeling the warmth of the sun and the weight of their victory. The journey had only begun, but in that moment she knew they were not alone, and that made all the difference.